Hey everybody, and welcome to Phantom Curiosities. Today's episode is about one of the most popular horror films to date. One of my favorite scary movie series, Scream. Also known as Ghostface, the mass murderer from the movie Scream. From the 90s, with all the popular stars, this movie blew it out of the water. Not only was the plot great, but it was so popular, it got so many stars on the map. This mask was my absolute favorite growing up, and I was the Scream mask for multiple Halloweens. I absolutely loved it. I even had the fake heart, little blood fake pump into the mask. It had this device that pumped fake blood onto the mask itself, and I felt bad scaring so many children, but I was really obsessed with the movie growing up, and you'll see why as well. And not only did it cause a lot of real life burglaries with robbers wearing Scream masks across the world, with theft and high crime, but this popular movie was actually inspired by a real life murder story. So warning, we are going to be talking about murder, very creepy true life crime stories, so I'm warning you now. If you haven't heard about the Gainesville Ripper, the killer who inspired the Scream movies, well, here we go. We're about to get into it. A lot of people have seen Scream. The brutal murders of several young people that struck fear in Florida community sent ripples through the county. Mostly think fondly of the way Scream was able to humorously subvert the tropes of the horror genre in a stroke of postmodern meta-genius, but the fact remains that the story centers around a string of slayings. Teenagers explain it like gutted like fish, as one of the Scream's characters put it. And in Gainesville in 1990, there wasn't any clever humor to take the edge off of what was going on. For better or for worse, however, this story is cinematic, and a young screenwriter named Kevin Williamson thought so too. Growing up in a tiny town in North Carolina, Williamson originally wanted to be an actor, but he got few roles and couldn't make any money, and as he told several journalists in 1990s, he finally ended up house sitting in LA at someone's house in Westwood, a Tony neighborhood near UCLA. One night he happened to turn on the television and there was a special on. It was about the Gainesville murders. It freaked him out so badly, he said, that he began fantasizing that a knife-wielding killer was waiting for him outside the well-appointed house that he was crashing in. This experience to him gave birth to Scream. The screenplay Williamson promoted sold to the then up-and-coming Weinstein brothers for $400,000. The Scream movie went in wide release on December 20th, 1996. It made over $80 million in the box office debut. And as for now, it's grossed about $175 million, without counting proceeds from its sequels. If you include them, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 million. Horror movies are scary enough when they seem made up, but are about events that could possibly happen. When you find a horror movie is based on true events, now that's truly bone-chilling. Believe it or not, the Scream movies are in fact based on real-life events. The gory horror franchise, which has sparked fear in many people, is even more terrifying with this tidbit of information. The real events took place in Gainesville, Florida, on the campus of the University of Florida. 5 women were killed in the short span of 4 days in 1990. The man who went on an atrocious killing spree at the university was named Danny Rolling. The victims' bodies were horribly mutilated, and one poor girl was even left decapitated. Some of the corpses were then posed in inappropriate positions before being left by Rolling. After Rolling was arrested, he admitted to having raped some of his victims as well. The women were aged from 17 to 23 years old, and all but one attended the school. The other girl went to a community college. And the crimes took place so early in the fall semester, but that by the time the spree was halfway through, some students were already withdrawing their enrollment from the campus. The victims' names were, rest in peace, Christina Hoyt, Christina Powell, Sonia Larson, Manuel Taboada, and Tracy Pauls. These were not the only murders the man who ended up being dubbed the Gainesville Ripper committed. Rolling has officially been tied to 8 murders. Shortly before the gruesome murders at the University of Florida, there was a triple homicide in Shreveport, Louisiana. The triple homicide took place in 1998 and left William Grissom, his daughter Julie, and her son dead, whose name was Sean. The family had been preparing dinner when Rowling interrupted and killed everyone in the home. However, he never went to trial for this case because he was never admitted to it until shortly before he received his death sentence. He has such sad-looking eyes and is so deadpan. He handed over a written confession regarding the Louisiana crime before getting the lethal injection in October 2006. When Rowling had been arrested for the Florida spree, he had pled guilty to all 5 accounts of murder while at trial. Authorities had previously suspected Danny Rowling may have been part of the triple homicide because it resembled his Floridian crimes. The 24-year-old victim, Julie, had been posed after her death. However, investigators never had any evidence he was the perpetrator until he confessed. Rowling had also attempted to kill his own father in 1990, but was unsuccessful. It doesn't take a stretch of imagination to see how the Scream movies were born after these horrific crimes. However, it does make the franchise even more terrifying to watch. There have been a number of other books and documentaries inspired by Rowling or even about him. He even cooperated with the creators of the documentary The Making of a Serial Killer, the true story of the Gainesville murders in the killer's own words. This is no surprise though, since he was asked why he committed the crimes, he replied that he wanted to be the next Ted Bundy. If you don't know, Ted Bundy's one of the most famous, which I hate saying famous, with murders. But he's one of the most famous American serial killers who kidnapped, raped, and murdered numerous women and girls in the 70s. He's escaped jail twice, and he always posed as someone who needed help. So, lesson learned, if a man approaches you and you're a female and asks for help, please do not help. Why would a guy much older than you want your help? It resembled Scream so much that it provides plenty of slashing scares in the end. Its story of Sidney in the movie Scream and the Masked Killer bears only a passing resemblance of Danny Rowling, the Gainesville Ripper, whose life of violence and despair would present a difficult task for any screenwriter to depict. Before his murders, he began a cycle of armed robberies and incarceration. He was kicked out of the Air Force in 1972 after getting busted for a drug possession. Rowling went on to live with his grandfather for some time and some stability through his church. He married a woman named Omather Hulko, who he had a daughter, but eventually he drove her away after exacting the same sort of abuse in her that had been prevalent in his own childhood home. He already harbored a habit of voyeurism and plagued by disturbing visions. Rowling took a turn for the worse after his divorce, when he raped a woman who resembled his ex-wife. And this is when he started on his robberies, attempting several armed robberies through the South and leading to his incarceration in Jackson, Georgia in 1979. In the 1980s brought more of the same for Rowling, who was in and out of jail in Alabama and Mississippi for armed robbery. His time between stints in jail were spent traveling the country, stealing and occasionally forcing himself upon women. But back in Shreveport in November 1989, Rowling was fired from his job at a restaurant. That same night, he broke into a home to murder his first victim, 24-year-old Julie Grissom. As in Scream, Rowling's The Killer in Gainesville was what some who studied serial crime would call a martyr. He appeared to be operating only in a small geographical area. The obvious assumption would be that such a criminal calls the area home. Some martyrs are just lazy. They don't want to have to travel too far to commit their crimes. Others enjoy the terror they create. But there are risks to operating so close to your home. For one thing, people might recognize a criminal who flees the scene of the crime. Your chances of getting caught are much higher. Perhaps that explains why, within mere days of the murders, the police in Gainesville were already happy to tell the press they had a suspect. And that has been the story behind the movie Scream, Ghostface the Killer, and where it originated from was a real-life murder. Well, many murders. Pretty crazy. I hope you guys enjoyed today's Phantom Curiosities. Leave a comment down below on what you would love to see on this series next. Whether it's a really popular ghost story, a haunted doll, or a spooky thing. let me know and I'll shout you out in the next Phantom Curiosities video. Subscribe for more videos like this. We do Phantom Curiosities once or twice a month here on this channel, and we do 2 videos a week every Monday and Friday of effects makeups, of characters, beauty makeups as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Sweet dreams, stay spooky. Love you, creators. Bye.